Year 11, welcome to your revision on Invasion for your English Literature Poetry exam. If we start with the background to the poem is about Kurdish people. If you're wondering who Kurdish people are, they are an ethnic minority living in the northern part of Iraq. Under the regime of Saddam Hussein, they were brutally persecuted. In one particular incident, 2,000 Kurdish villages were destroyed, and in an appalling act of genocide, 100,000 civilians were killed and buried in mass graves. In the poem Invasion, Hardy describes the invasion of Kurdish Iraq by Saddam Hussein's troops in 1988. Just another detail before we begin. The poet Hardy is never specific in her poem about the identity of the soldiers or their victims. This gives the poem a universal appeal because it explores the fate of countless other minority groups who suffer from racial persecution. Okay? So as I've said, she doesn't make it very specific. So actually it could apply to any war really. It doesn't necessarily have to apply to the Kurdish people and Saddam Hussein. If we begin then with structure, the structure of the poem, the poet uses free verse. Free verse is used to express a serious message. The poem is autobiographical. The free verse adds to the narrative. In addition to the free verse used, irregular stanza lengths show the spontaneity of Saddam Hussein's attack and how the Kurdish people were not expecting it. As you can see, the irregular stanza lengths are 3 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines, 2 lines. And finally, the poet also uses enjambment. The use of enjambment applies war will always happen, and that it is difficult to prevent, particularly in this instant, and specifically for the Kurdish people. If we now analyse language, you can see in the first line, soon they will come. The future tense of the word will makes the war sound inevitable, as if Saddam Hussein was always going to attack the Kurdish people and they couldn't prevent it. The pronoun they is exclusive in the sense that we don't know who they are. It's very generic, so Hardy could be talking about anybody, which makes the poem more sinister and more ominous because the reader is forced to question who they actually are. Again, on the theme of pronoun, we've got the inclusive pronoun we. Again, we don't know who that is, adding that uncomfortable atmosphere to the poem, but also the inclusive pronoun we includes the reader. It's as if we are the victims, we are part of the Kurdish people and we cannot defend ourselves. We will hear the sound of their boots approaching at dawn, then they'll appear through the mist. Approaching at dawn and through the mist, this imagery adds to the sinister tone, because once again it's unknown, it unsettles the reader. They appear through the mist. It could be anyone. Mist has that type of gothic feel to it, in the sense of providing us with that unease. And the next bit, in their death-bringing uniforms, personification is used there, which makes the uniforms sound more professional and ruthless, in the sense that when the Iraqis put their uniform on, death is the answer. They will march towards our homes, another inclusive pronoun there, our homes, forcing the reader to sympathise with the Kurdish people. Home, obviously that's emotive in the sense of, usually when we think of home, we think of somewhere where we're safe, somewhere where we like to be. Obviously this isn't the case here because the Kurdish people's homes have been taken away from them. Their guns and tanks pointing forward, aggressive and confrontational, on the idea that the guns and the tanks are pointing towards them and inevitably going to fire. They will be confronted by young men. Again, they're ready to fight. They're not going to give up, with rusty guns and boiling blood. Rusty guns shows us that they don't have the right equipment. The Kurdish people don't have the right equipment to defend themselves, which contrasts with the weapons that the Iraqi people would have in the Iraqi army. Boiling blood, the alliteration there shows us that the men are very angry and passionate about protecting themselves. These are our young men who took their short-lived freedom for granted. adjective young there shows us that innocent lives are being taken, and young men particularly are being murdered here in the attempt to protect their people. Short-lived freedom suggests it's happened before. Obviously, short-lived freedom, it's almost an oxymoron, actually. We will lose this war again. It's a very inevitable and defeatist attitude. The Kurdish people know that they can't defend themselves against the Iraqis, and remember that they weren't expecting this attack. Blood will cover our roads, mix with our drinking water, it will creep into our dreams. Very powerful image here about the blood mixing into the water and then into the dreams. Ironic that dreams should be used, because naturally we would expect this situation to bring about nightmares. The fact that the blood is contaminating everything, including the water, including people's thoughts, including people's nightmares and dreams, shows us that this war and this act by Saddam Hussein will not be forgotten, and it will live on in the Kurdish people's memory for years to come. And the last two lines: keep your head down and stay indoors. We've lost this war before it had begun. Once again, the poem ends with a negative idea, in the sense that they know they're going to lose, but the reader is dragged in at the ending again with the pronoun your. It's almost as if we're directly being addressed. Keep your head down, as if to stay out the way, stay safe. It's almost not worth getting involved, because the price you pay will be death.